Well, I'm a deal maker. I'll make great deals for this country. Ben can't do that. Ben's a doctor, and he's not a deal maker. And I'll make great deals for our country, which is very important. And I see it yesterday in Iowa. The place was going wild. We had record crowds. And they want competence. They want deal making. They want to take back our jobs from China and Japan and Mexico and all of these countries that are just ripping us left and right. And so, I mean, I have been a world-class businessman, according to everybody that talks about me in terms of the world of business, and I make deals, and I'll bring back jobs, and I'll also bring back wealth to our country, and I'll build up our military so that nobody's going to mess with us, and I'll take care of our vets and do things such as that. But Ben is not a deal maker at all, and I don't think would be a very good. I don't think that's his natural ability at all.
When you and I last talked, you mentioned hedge fund managers were getting away with murder. You mentioned that again yesterday. Who else is getting away, do you think, with murder in this economy?
Well, I just use that as the ultimate example because I know these guys. They're all supporting Jeb Bush for the most part and Hillary Clinton. And, you know, it's funny when I hear them talking about, oh, we've got to stop this and that. They don't mean it because they're totally controlled by Hillary, and Jeb in particular are totally controlled by the hedge fund guys and, you know, the Wall Street guys, but hedge funds in particular. So they pay very little tax, and that's going to end when I come out with my plan in about 3 weeks. Could be sooner than that. We have an amazing tax plan. We're going to be reducing taxes for the middle class, but for the hedge fund guys, they're going to be paying up.
Anybody else who has to worry about their taxes?
No, I think generally it's going to be a reduction. I want a corporate reduction. I want to bring the money back into this country. We have $2.5 trillion, John, out of this country, and the corporations rightfully don't bring it back because they have a massive tax to pay, and we've got to make it so they can bring it back, and I'll be bringing it back. We're going to have a lot of money pouring into the United States if I get elected, and so we're going to make it possible for them by lowering that tax rate, and we're going to be lowering it for corporations because we want jobs. We want jobs coming back into this country where you have all of this money, this vast wealth sitting outside of the country because rightfully, if you were running the company, if I was running the company, you wouldn't bring it back in. We will be bringing back trillions of dollars into this country.
I was thinking about you and Ross Perot recently, another billionaire CEO candidate who didn't like the trade deals the country was engaged in. One of the things he used to talk about was CEO pay, that it had gotten too high. It's now 350 times the average worker. Does that bug you at all as you think about your tax plan and the inequities in the economy?
Well, it does bug me. It's very hard if you have a free enterprise system to do anything about that. You know, the boards of companies are supposed to do it, but I know companies very well, and the CEO puts in all his friends, and so you'll take a company like I could say Macy's or many other companies where they put in their friends as the head of the company, and they get whatever they want, you know, because the friends love sitting on the board. So that's a system that we have, and it's a shame, and it's disgraceful, and sometimes the boards rule, but I would say it's probably less than 10%. And you see these guys making these enormous amounts of money. It's a total and complete joke.
You said the system's out of whack, and do you think the economy is tilted the way a lot of Americans do, that it's unfair?
It's not a question of unfair. You know, it's a false economy that we're living in. We're in a bubble. And more importantly, when you look at unemployment in this country, we have close to 100 million people that are out of work, and yet we have a 5.3% unemployment rate, which is a total joke. I think the real number is probably into the 30s. Somebody actually read the other day, they said it's actually 42%. And that's the real number. You know, when you go out there, you see tremendously unhappy people. And then you read, oh, the jobs numbers. Well, it's a phony number because when you stop looking for a job, you're no longer in that statistic. So if you're looking for a job and you stop, you're no longer in the statistic, John. And then they say it's a 5.2, 5.3%. It's not 5.3%. It's in the 20s, 30s. It could even be in the 40s. And there are a lot of unhappy people out there. And it's just this was made up by the politicians, for the politicians, the accounting method, so that they could look good. But let me tell you something. The Obama administration, we have tremendous unemployment in this country. And the fact is, we don't make things anymore. You look at what's going on with China. You look at what's going on with Japan, with the cars. You look at what's going on with Mexico, where they're taking our jobs, not only killing us at the border. I love Mexico. I have great relationships in Mexico. But their leaders are much smarter than our leaders, and they're taking our jobs. They're killing us at the border. Everybody takes advantage of the United States because we have people that truly don't know what they're doing leading us.
When you talk about the system and the politicians who are running it poorly, have you thought about any kind of reform agenda that would include the campaign finance system? You've criticized that, but anything on that, or on term limits, or a balanced budget? Is there a reform agenda behind your candidacy?
Well, the biggest reform is to get competent people in office. I mean, that's, to me, the biggest reform we could make. If you put competent people in office, really competent people, because we need the best. If you look at places like China, they have superstars at their positions. They arrive there a different method. They arrive there by being smart. We arrived there for, I don't know, it's hard to believe some of the people that we have in office. And then it's even harder to believe some of the people they appoint to represent us on trade and other things. So the biggest reform we can make is to put really competent, super competent people in office. And frankly, that's what I'm trying to do. I mean, I'm doing this. I've been a politician for 3 months, and I'm having a lot of fun. And I'm very gratified when I hear your numbers. That's really fantastic. I mean, I'm surprised in New Hampshire because, frankly, Ben Carson's a very, very nice man. But this will not be a good situation because of the fact that he's not a dealer, he's not a negotiator, and the president has to be able. We have to bring wealth back into our country. We're a country with $19 trillion in debt. We have $19 trillion. We have to get rid of that. We have to bring wealth back into our country. Ben can't do that.
Let me ask you a question about, you've been a politician for 3 weeks. Let's go back to your experience in the business world. I want to ask you about this comment that was quoted in Rolling Stone that you mentioned about Carly Fiorina. And think about it in a business context. So the Rolling Stone quote is, you said, "Look at that face. Would anyone vote for that?" Can you imagine the face of our next president? I mean, she's a woman, and I'm not supposed to say bad things, but really, folks, come on, are we serious? Let me ask you as a business question, not a political correctness politics question. How would you expect the Human Resources Department to handle that if an executive at your company was heard saying that about a woman employee? What would you expect?
Well, first of all, I was talking about her persona. She had tremendously, you could call it bad luck. You could call it she did a bad job. But Hewlett-Packard was a disaster, and Lucent, the company she was at before Hewlett-Packard, was a disaster. And these were two disastrous reigns. And, you say now she's running for president. Then, of course, she lost in a landslide to Barbara Boxer. And, to be honest with you, the problem we have is we're so politically correct that we can't get out of our way. So people make statements, and all of a sudden the statement's such a big deal. I'm only talking about her persona. Her persona is just she hasn't done a good job in, you could call it the private sector. The companies, you take a look at the record, look at the Yale Law School, the top man at Yale Law School came out, Jeffrey Sonnenfeld, with just a raging report. She's one of the worst executives in his memory, in history, running a company. Well, you know what? Maybe she isn't, maybe she isn't, but can we really take a chance? In my case, I've made over $10 billion net. I've created a tremendous company. I have some of the greatest assets in the world. And to be honest with you, that's the kind of mindset I'm not saying that to brag. I'm just saying, John, that's the kind of mindset that our country needs.
Okay, Mr. Trump, unfortunately, we're out of time. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you very much.